What's happening, good people? So I wanted to jump on here to talk about comms, communication, emergency comms, everyday comms. As some of you guys may know, I was into FRS radios for a while. We talked about that like half a year, a year or so ago. For the people who may watch this who are not familiar with me, my name is Ive. I'm into solar. This is a channel about solar, but we're into solar to power stuff around our life. So if the grid goes down or we have problems, we could still keep things kind of rolling. So communication has always been very important to me. Even though I don't necessarily talk to a lot of people, I like to be able to talk to the people that I like to talk to. And I went on this idea of being into GMRS because actually I had a conversation on Ria's Shack Ham Radio. I forget, her name is kind of like spoken in an interesting way, but Ria's Shack Ham Radio, Ria's Ham Radio Shack. So I think it's Ria's Shack Ham Radio. She is a ham, of course. It's in the name. We sat down and we chatted, and I never was compelled to really get into a ham radio. It seemed like really intense. Not that it would be complicated, but from a person who didn't necessarily have any walkie-talkies, I may have had a pair. I got the testing, the equipment. I know I like relatively fly equipment, so I wouldn't be able to get like the flyest stuff. I guess I kind of live in the middle. I don't necessarily like the fly stuff. I do like the fly stuff. It's just I can't necessarily always afford the fly stuff, right? So she, as with many hams, they encourage you to take the test. The test is not hard. You just have to study and so on and so forth. But I never could quite get into that. So where I landed was FRS radios and walkie-talkies, as guys may know them. FRS Family Radio Service, I believe. You got a couple channels, 1 through like 22 or something like that. I have owned walkie-talkies before. My first pair of walkie-talkies, I bought them from Radio Shack. They were some super slim joints. I was probably like 17. And, my friends lived close by, so we would use them to communicate in some capacity or another. I wish I still had those things, but Hurricane Katrina said she wanted them, so she got them. She won. You know what I mean? So another thing is later on, it's like I have these like cyclical research cycles where I'm always interested in like, okay, well, what kind of walkie-talkie technology is out there? And what I landed on was the Motorola series, because we all I imagine we know Motorola for walkie-talkies, cell phones, things like that. So I would kind of see what they were into. Nothing was really impressive, but I landed on the T600 series because it was one of the most feature-rich ones from a brand that I was familiar with that I felt like I could trust. Now, this particular one is the T600. It's rechargeable, it's waterproof, it has a light on the bottom, it has relatively decent range for an FRS radio. As you can see, it's pretty big. It's freaking huge. But I was happy to get it. I got it for a pretty solid deal. What's up, Jay? What's up, Grand Acres? What's happening? What is that, Needy? I got it for a pretty good deal. I very rarely pay full price for stuff. I'm very patient, so I got these from a local guy. Got them for a good deal. They take AAA batteries, AA batteries. They take 3 of them. Now, the range on this is not great. These walkie-talkie radios, they'll advertise long range up to 36 miles. But for most people, that's not going to be the case. I don't think anybody's going to get 36 miles, point blank, period. But what you can expect in the city is maybe about half a mile, realistically, maybe even a quarter of a mile. So let me first give you guys the reason why I like these so much, some of the reasons why I purchased them and deploy them. So my wife and I, she'll take the kids for a walk or something like that. And I like to be able to have quick access to her. Also, when we travel, let's say we're staying in a hotel she has to go out to the car for something, or she may run out to get us some food, or I have to go out to the car or something. I may have to run out to get us some food. I want to be able to have quick communication with my wife instead of what we normally use, which is Telegram. It's like, babe, somebody's harassing me. Can you come down? You know, it's like, or babe, somebody's harassing me. Wait for the phone to ring. I'm having a problem. I need help. Come down, help me out, blah, 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 so on and so forth. So walkie-talkies give you an instant communication. The speaker, it comes out loud. So I was really into that when we're on the road, or she has to run into somewhere. If we happen to have any type of situation where, you know, cell phone service is not working, our phones are not working for some reason, we have an alternative way to communicate. So I grabbed these joints and we use them around the neighborhood. We use them while traveling, and they have been decent. You know, you get about good 4 blocks of coverage. They work off of line of sight and things that are in between you and line of sight impede their ability to talk to each other. You can kind of get by through like a tree or something like that, but the range on this is just not fantastic. But I didn't expect it to be. It's for short range communication. My expectations were being managed very well. Okay, so this particular radio has a detachable joint, has a whistle on it. It takes 3 batteries because it is waterproof. It's a pain to deal with these screws. Also, when I bought this, the batteries didn't work. So I have to use rechargeable batteries with it. So that's why the back cover kind of annoyed me a lot, because I'd have to get like a quarter or something to take this off every time. And I didn't have the rechargeable batteries. I went through a whole thing of ordering another set to see if maybe the radio was problematic, but it was actually the batteries. And I had to kind of take that L because I bought them used from a guy, and he said that they were new. They never used them, but the batteries just didn't work. So I don't have working batteries. Now, what I eventually moved on to was these 2 styles of radios. They're the same thing, FRS radios. I think I bought these first. I don't know if I paid full price for these or if I got them off of the marketplace. I may have gotten these off of the marketplace, but maybe I ordered them off of Amazon. I'm not exactly sure. Same technology. This one was interesting because I thought it was going to work well with the charging cradle. The charging cradle has a power adapter that I assumed was just going to be able to wrongly plug into these ports. I now know what these ports are for. I mean, I always knew what they was for, but I thought I could at least get power through them. These don't charge over USB. This is the Midland something, something, something or another. These do charge over micro USB. It's not USB-C, you know, it is what it is. But these work well. I really like these. So they're a lot smaller. They're a lot easier for me to give one away from my wife, and she doesn't kind of mind carrying them. She feels inconvenienced by it sometimes, but it's very rare, very, very rare that she feels inconvenienced by carrying these. She's a good sport about it, and I appreciate it. So maybe we go to a mall or something like that, and she's in there. It doesn't work. The range is not perfect at a mall. She has to kind of like stick close to me to be able to communicate. It's not ideal, but it works. If something were to happen, an emergency situation, we have another means of communication. You know what I mean? Because if you're in a situation and there is an emergency that is localized to your area, the cell phone towers can only handle so much capacity. And what happens when an emergency happens? People start to call and try to reach their loved ones. It's always ideal to text first because text is a lot less data. So you can typically get text messages more easily than you can get a phone call to go through. Just a little bit of tidbit of information in case you guys didn't know that. Yeah, Jay, you caught the live stream, but it ain't about solar. So I appreciate y'all riding with me. So we've been using those and I've been fine with it. And another reason why I didn't jump to GMRS when I was first interested in it is there was some rumors of the FCC dropping the price from $70 to $35. That has since happened and happened some time ago, maybe in the last like 1 or 2 years. The license is similar to like a fishing license. You just have to go and buy a license, then you're able to transmit on GMRS. The FCC site is a mess. It's kind of hard you can't just jump in as with the government. They don't necessarily do that well. You can't jump in and do it easily. So there was some caution there. And the walkie-talkies have served me well for my purposes. But then a friend of the family, my wife's friend, she reached out and she was like, just curious, what's your communication plan in case something happens? How do you? I'm just reaching out to see if you guys have a plan. She was like, I feel like God, pressed it up on my heart to ask y'all. And I was like, it's funny you say that. And then I went through the spiel of what I just shared with y'all, walkie talkies and so on and so forth. And then my man, his channel is called TheCleezeReport, CLEEZE. He mentioned some time ago, he's actually the guy I gave the EB120 to, and the solar panels. So we have a very similar mindset. We met each other on like a men's ministry, a men's fellowship, and it was just like, oh man, we started chatting, and I found out we have a lot of things in common. Yeah, I think that's the same. So he mentioned ham radio maybe about 3 to 4 months prior. And I was like, you know what? This is the second time this has come up. And I was not psyched about ham. So I was just like, yeah, that's not really my thing. I didn't say that, but in my mind, I thought it. But I'm still open to it. But it just wasn't something I was going to act on immediately. So I was talking with her and I was like, you know what? Let's all link up together because we live in relative close-ish proximity to each other. Not close at all. They're about like 2 hours away. But it's like, you know what? I may need to take this a little more serious. So both of us started to do a little research. He initially got into a lot of research, found some radios that he could recommend, an inexpensive one, which I think was the Baofeng, which is, if you're familiar with comms, Baofeng is very known in this realm because of their cheap radios, basically, and they get the job done. A little bit of what's the word? Controversy surrounded Baofeng because when they was first selling those radios were largely kind of unregulated. So you could basically transmit on anything. So what happens is FRS is free to use, the family radio service, which is your normal walkie-talkies. GMRS, you need a license. Ham, you need a license, and you need to take a test to get that license. And I think that there's levels to being a ham. So the Baofeng, you could transmit on that, and you could pretty much do GMRS. GMRS and FRS share the same channels, so they're kind of like very comparable. And then you could transmit on ham as well. So the FCC was giving them a problem. There was some questions of legality as it relates to the Baofeng radios, but we've come a long ways in terms of Baofeng kind of like making like GMRS radios and then ham radios. And then you could possibly take that radio and program it to do something else. But they did their part to separate them as far as I can tell. Now, let me see what y'all snapping and driving about real quick. Do people still go to malls? I mean, yeah, we do. What's up, Dean? I just bought a pair of Midlands. Oh, really? Tell me about it. I'm curious about why you grabbed them. It's been a while, man. It's been a while. Hey, Radiant Jasmine. Good to see you. I all the same type of radios for the same reason with my family. So you own? Is that what you mean? Yeah, I caught a live. I've been catching a live with this. I've been craving a live with this group. That's what's up. I'm glad you're here. It's always good to see your name. Okay, I got you. So I use all the same radios for all the same reasons with my family. I dig that. That's pretty dope. That's pretty dope. Pretty dope. So as you guys may know, I'm a heavy researcher. So my man Cleeze, he did some research, and he's more of a he researches and then he he puts a pin in his stuff. Like, okay, this is the cheap radio, this is the expensive radio, this is the particular power station that I want to go with, and he can just kind of like go with it, have it in mind that that's what he's gonna do, and then move on, kind of, sorta. We're still very similar, but he can put like a bookend on a search, whereas like it's a little bit harder for me. So I kept searching and searching. I'm watching all of these videos. It was a lot, man, to try to figure out what kind of GMRS device that I wanted. I wasn't really moved by the Baofangs, but they were always going to be like a clutch option. Actually, my favorite video, I have some links in the description as well for what caught my eye and my favorite option. This joint that I wanted was like 155. It's the BTech GMRS-Pro, $155. I was not necessarily excited about spending that kind of money, but I was open to it. Typically how I work is I want to look at the cheapest thing, and then I want to look at the most expensive thing, and then I kind of like land somewhere in the middle. This is kind of like how this process went for me this time as well. The BTech would be my favorite one, and it's mainly because it's a very tech heavy radio in that you could do SMS on it but both of the people or all parties involved have to have the same radio. So I knew I wasn't going to spend $320, $350 on radios to get myself and my wife one. So that kind of like kicked the BTech out of the window. I wasn't going to get that one. I still like it though. It's a dope radio. So I'm watching all of these videos, and basically what I went through is this idea of like, okay, what are the top radios? What's the top 10 cheapest, best, fancy, 2023, 2024, 2022. So I'm watching all of these channels, and long story really short, because it was a lot of work, I landed on this company called TIDRadio, and they had an H8 model. Let me see if I can show you. I actually happen to have the link up. Let's do Control Shift P, and let's bring it over here, not like that, and share it. Back to my window, into the wall. I hate that I exposed y'all of that just now, but that song pops into my head for how inappropriate it is from time to time. Let's see here. Second gen. I think this is what I want. No, that is not what I want. How you gonna share the wrong window, man? Share the right window, B. Give me a second, guys. All right, stop, present, share, window. Oh, okay, that should be evident right there, I think. Let's give it a shot again. All right, that looks good. Dang, these screens are trash. These pictures are real bad. I'm gonna have to do the dual pack because the single pack only shows the clear one. So this TID radio, or TID radio, as some people say, it is H8, and I'm gonna just cut to the chase as it relates to how this one like really impacted me. So basically, it had USB-C charging. It had the ability to be programmed via Bluetooth, which is really rare in these radios. These radios typically have something where they'll have their own software, or they'll have the ability to work with this open source software called Chirp. So Chirp is like, I guess it's somebody developed it, as with all software, but it's very like community based and community driven. So what you can do, imagine if you're into It's kind of like the MC4 of software. It's compatible with a whole bunch of radios. That's a bad analogy, but I just want you to understand. So if you have, 5 or 6 radios, or a club that you belong to, or a group of people who use radios, and they need to have their radios programmed for whatever reason. I'll talk about programming in a little bit. And it supports Chirp, and you have the Chirp software on your computer. You can just program all of those radios with the Chirp software instead of taking Baofeng software, TID software, Radiodity. I don't know how to say it. Their software, Midland software. You know what I mean? All of these radio companies, this one piece of software will work for all of those that it works for. It doesn't always work for everything. Cable's filthy. So this joint for the price was very compelling to me as a newbie. I like the fact that I won't have to mess around with any software or learn software. I could just program it right from the app on the phone. Now, there is an email that you have to create. I know some people don't care for that. I am some people. But they were saying basically the email itself doesn't even have to be real. It's just an email to allow you to get into the app and then get into the web and then synchronize those things. So it has no bearing on whether or not you need to verify that email. At least that's what I've been told. I haven't tried it yet. So the H8 was where I was with it because it's a pretty dope radio. Let me see if I can find a singular one that just shows it by itself. We'll just go with that one. All right. I don't fully understand the watts. Most GMRS radios are 5 to 10 watts. In the handheld space, there are stronger radios. I don't want to get super technical. I don't have the ability to get super technical. But this is the radio. This joke is pretty cool. And I was concerned about size, right? Because as you can see, my first radio was pretty big. I don't use this radio anymore because it's so huge and it's pretty much a pain because I don't have rechargeable batteries in it. I'm typically going to grab these radios more when we're moving and shaking, even though this radio has like the better feature set. It's not necessarily particularly better in the range, but the feature set is much better. But I love compact portability. So I'm looking at these H8 videos, watching 10, 12, 15 plus reviews. And I'm like, I think this is the one. So I hit my man up and I was like, yo, I think this is where it's at. This is probably the radio that I'm going to grab. And it's about 50 bucks, 59, so on and so forth. Now, what I did land on is this particular one, which is like the little brother of the H8, and it's called the TIDH3. Now, the difference between FRS and GMRS is that they have these detachable antennas, and these antennas are stronger than what you would get on your typical FRS radio. If you look at the difference in the antenna, it's pretty substantial. And these transmit at about 0.5 to 2 watts. This can transmit at 5 watts. So it's a much stronger radio with a much better antenna. This is not necessarily a great antenna. This is considered basic. You can have an antenna that's probably about, let me see if I can get this in the frame. It may be about that long or a little bit longer to get good range out of this. Now, let's talk about range just a little bit. I was excited about the fact because people were saying that with these radios, with a better antenna than this, you could get like, they would say like 6 miles. 6 miles is crazy. Remember, the FRS radios get you like a couple blocks, basically. You maybe get like 5, 6 blocks out of it in a city. Now, they said 6 miles, and they were pretty much talking about not having a whole lot of elevation and, obstacles in between and things like that. So I'm just like, man, if I could get like a mile, a legit mile, or if I could get more than a mile with these kind of radios, that's freaking fantastic. And look at the size of this thing. The only thing you got to worry about is the longer antenna. The antenna can probably get maybe about that long for the one that's popular that a lot of people like. This joint is the same size as this joint and this joint. And it's so much more capable than all of them. I'm super gleeful that I was able to find something that was this small and can do the things that it can do. And one of these guys, his channel's name is Not a Rubicon. He's an interesting guy. He has an interesting kind of sense of humor. Uh, that's a whole nother thing. But he talks about range on most GMRS radio handhelds is pretty much the same. So if you spend $40 on one and you have one kind of antenna in it, and you spend $160 on one or $200 on one, and you have the same antenna, you're pretty much going to get the same range. So when picking a GMRS radio, I want to start calling it just a G radio because I'm tired of saying GMRS. I've been talking about this a lot. You can start out very basic and still accomplish the very same things, maybe outside of some features. Oh, this radio cost me 30 bucks, $30. So I need to get another one for my wife at some point. We need to get our license. We are going to get our license. And the license is $35 for 10 years for your immediate family. Now, that's really, I mean, even $70 for 10 years for your family is not. She needs to finish rinsing off, baby. And then turn it off, okay? So it's $35 for the license. It covers your immediate family and it covers you for 10 years. Now, the interesting thing that I started to learn about this is that what the FCC does is they give you a call sign. So let's say your call sign is like 5 characters, WXPRQ1 or something like that. Whenever you transmit, everybody who uses the radios, basically that call sign belongs to everybody who's under your, I'll consider your immediate family. And basically how I understand and how I think you should understand immediate family is your immediate people in your household. Some people talk about how it may be able to cover your mom and your dad and stuff like that, but all of the people who seem like they weren't just trying to speak all loose were just like immediate family. Let's not get into going far. Now I also feel like I need to let you guys know that the people who I've been watching have talked about the fact that realistically, the FCC is probably not going to come behind or run behind anybody who's transmitting without a license. But do you want to be the person who's transmitting without a license that has a problem? But it seems like the process is you transmit without a license, the FCC will attempt to contact you. And if you keep wilding out, especially if you're doing something nefarious, then they could levy fines against you and stuff like that. But could you get away with transmitting on a GMRS radio without a license? I don't know, man. That's a call you have to make. I'm definitely going to get my license because you just can't beat $35 for covering your entire family, your immediate family. So this radio just came today, actually. I got it in the mail and I charged it up. It has a USB-C port on the bottom for charging. It also, this particular radio, not similar to the H8, its bigger brother. I heard a power station beeping. I'm like, what is going on there? It has a USB-C cable on it as well, on the radio itself, but it's not for charging. I would have liked it if this dip was able to charge as well, because I like options, but it's only for programming the radio. I'll talk about programming a little bit later. It has the same like 2 holes that a typical radio has with the microphone for the speaker, but you can program the radio through that hole as well. Now, what programming comes down to, as I understand it, these radios, They transmit on the same channels as FRS, which is channels like 1 through 22 or something like that. My family and I, we typically live on channel 9. We rock on channel 9 typically, but you could use whatever channel you want. There are some there's some differences in the channels. I think like 1 through 8 is high power and like 9 through 14 is low power, and then 5 through something. I need to look into that. But you can use these with FRS radios, which was another plus. I got 6 FRS radios or normal walkie-talkies. I can actually still talk with those from these. Now, they won't have the range that I have, but if my wife is around, and let's say I'm licensed and she's moving around the neighborhood and I haven't purchased a radio for her yet, she's still within the 4 to 5 blocks, me and her can still talk with these radios, which I think is fantastic. It has a little light on the top, which is interesting. Let me turn it on. That's how it turns on. I'll give you guys a close-up of what the screen looks like. I'll try to do that at least. You can see right now it's on channel 9. That's the channel that we typically use. The keyboard is backlit. The light kind of turns on. I have not pressed the transmit button on here yet because I'm not going wild out without the license. So something about that call sign that is interesting. They assign you one for anybody who uses it in your family. The thing that I really don't like this, is you have to announce your call sign. They typically say like during your transmission or I think the general consensus is that you end your transmission with your call sign, and they say or every 15 minutes. I don't know why they say or every 15 minutes. I guess that's if you're talking very long on a radio, then it's weird. I need to look into that. What I'm hoping is that, one, I feel like people aren't necessarily sticklers about stuff like this, but it's just, this is the laws, not the laws, the rules that have been laid out by the FCC. It's like when you transmit, you end with your call sign. So if you're all using the same call sign, people may say, XYZ123A, or main, or mobile, or 1 or 2. This is base. This is, so on and so forth. So it's really going to be interesting how, like, seeing what happens around here in terms of me and my wife using it, testing range in different topographies, because I think somewhere like we traveled to New Orleans in the last like 5 months or so, which is where I'm from. And something like this would have been very useful, because even though New Orleans has levees and stuff, because a lot of the city is below sea level, it's relatively flat. So you could maintain line of sight a lot more easily there than we can here, where you have like hills and, things like that to get in the way. Let me see what y'all snapping and driving about. That's stupid to not allow USB charging in 2024. It's that it doesn't allow USB charging on the radio itself, but it allows it on the battery. Which the Baofeng joints, for the longest time, they didn't allow USB charging at all. So USB charging is something that the people in the community are really excited about. Is this thing still on? No, it's not. So I'm happy that it has it built in, but it would have been nice if both ports could be used for charging, but one port is data only, which I'm not mad at, because it's good to see Tennessee Frank in here. I know Tennessee Frank is on these comms because he's all about that action. And he's all about that power. And typically, if you about that action and you about that power, you're about comms as well from a preparedness standpoint. But I'm happy that I don't have to buy a specialized cable. And when I say specialized cable, it's a standard cable for programming these radios. But for me, being like a youngish tech savvy guy, the fact that this has a USB-C port for programming, I don't have to get or buy a combo pack that has it. I don't have to buy a cable. I like that. I'm appreciative of that. All right, let's see. 6 miles is bananas. and there's repeaters. So in our area, and in most people's area, you'll have these repeaters that you connect to. Now that stuff gets interesting. It was a lot more complicated on the Baofeng radios, but on these radios with the ability to program via Bluetooth, I think I saw a reviewer said that in the app you can actually see where your repeaters are from the app. And then you could take that information from the app and then send it over to your radio via Bluetooth, because this joint has Bluetooth in it. So it can be programmed wirelessly. I think that that's dope. I don't even have to like look up and see, well, okay, do I have repeaters in my area? The app will show me, hopefully, who knows, but the ability to do it is pretty cool. So with the repeaters, how that typically works is it'll take, and if you're in the tech sphere or you think about wireless networks and things like that, it basically takes the signal and then repeats it and sends it out again. Repeaters are typically installed in places where they can be relatively high up, which increases line of sight. It's kind of like a cell phone tower. We don't have issues with connecting the cell phone towers because they're high up. It's the same thing with repeaters. They're typically high up. You can program your radio to connect to that tower. Because that tower is high up, its range is drastically increased. So people have talked about, repeaters giving you the ability to reach up to like 60, 70 miles away. Now, you have to know who you're trying to talk to. That's not necessarily accurate. So let's say you're broadcasting on a channel and then you program the repeater to be a part of your communication aspect because it's not programmed by default. You say, I want all my communication on channel 7 to also go out to this repeater. And if my wife and I are both tuned into channel 7, both have the repeaters configured, if she goes anywhere within that range, when I broadcast, that repeater is going to take it and then send it out again to her. And if her radio is on, it'll work just like if we're in the neighborhood of each other. It's going to repeat it and then she'll hear it. And then when she talks back, it's going to go up to that tower or that repeater, and then it'll broadcast it back down to her. Whereas like we could not communicate straight line of sight because our antennas aren't big enough to do that. So with the repeaters, it actually increases your ability to communicate drastically. When I tell you like, that's mind-boggling to me. With a product that you only pay $35 for and it covers you and your immediate family for 10 years. You ain't got to study, you ain't got to take those tests. Now, ham radios, the stuff that those folks can do, is very technical, and you could reach people in other countries and all kind of stuff, but you got to take that test, you got to study for it. It is not particularly complicated, like anything kind of basic. They just want you to be an educated user as it relates to those things, so that ultimately you don't mess stuff up. Because you'll want to be interfering with communication devices and things like that, because it's all radio waves and megahertz and all that jazz. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can cause a problem, which is why ham radio requires some knowledge. All right, now let me see here. Al Smoking, what's happening? Good evening. What's happening, John? Good to see you. Canada. How's your project going? I feel like I haven't gotten an update on a project in a while. I want whatever radio I can bounce off the troposphere to talk to another state. That would probably be ham. I'm pretty sure that's what it does. It charge by solar? Absolutely. USB-C got you covered. I'm a ham radio operator and I like the Quanxing UVK5. It's a much more okay modifications that you can do many more features. Yeah, this particular radio, I saw Quanxing or whatever it is. I think they make GMRS radios as well. I wasn't necessarily moved by it. Here's the interesting thing about all of this. If you're not as picky as me, you could buy any radio. I mean, this one happens to have a color screen. Some of them don't. This one displays the channels on there. You can do 2 channels at one time. I had the radio, the weather, radio coming through on here. It's already programmed to receive the radio. There's a lot of stuff you can do with these radios. You can even unlock this radio and then program it to hear ham stations. You can't transmit. I guess maybe you could, but you shouldn't. I feel like hams are. I get the impression that doing stuff foul over there kind of matters more than it does on GMRS. But you can listen to. You can do all kinds of stuff with these radios. It's kind of dope to be introduced to this and then getting to introduced to it in this season of life and learning about it. Whereas, like, 2-3 years ago, I just had an idea that, FRS range was going to be kind of whack and GMRS range was going to be kind of better. But then learning about the repeaters is kind of dope. Learning about the versatility of the radios is kind of dope. It's pretty cool from a preparedness standpoint. If you have an issue, you can, man, I just think that is, I don't see any reason why, one, an average person would just spend $30 and get one. I don't care if you don't ever intend to use it. Just have one, because if stuff gets weird, there's a solar eclipse happening on the 8th, which we could talk about a little bit. But if stuff gets weird, you could have an alternative means to communicate. So just buy a 2-pack, and the Baofangs are cool. I think it's the UV5R plus or something like that. But there's a bunch of radios. It's really confusing. I liked this one because it's a good medium. I may still get an H8. It's about $70. I don't know. The intention was to grab this particular one for my wife and get the bigger H8 for myself. But there really is no major difference between the two radios. And this one, for all, intents and purposes, seems to be a little bit better because the H8 does not have the USB-C programmable option. That's really it. I can't think of too much more that the H8 has, but I think this one is a little bit newer. Yeah, I advise you guys to all look into this and to consider it as a serious option as a part of your preparedness approach. Let's see. That's affordable for both that model and the license. Absolutely. Tim, what's happening? What is the brand name? TIDRadio. It's the TIDRadio TI-H3. I have links down in the joint. They are affiliate links. You don't have to use them if you don't want to, but those links will get you directly to the device. Let's see. You mean I can't let my cousin use it? Nah, you can't do that. Is that a ham radio? Technically, yes, but for the purposes of this conversation, it's a GMRS radio. Because I think there's some type of keypad combo you can do. You can change it. Hey guys, let's not bring the chatty energy, Adele. Noise and stuff. There's a key combination you can take to change this to a ham radio. And there's also a key combination you can take to unlock it completely, where it's just, it can do GMRS, it could do ham, it could do some other stuff. I don't know about I don't even want to call it legality, because as I understand it, the FCC is not necessarily about law and breaking the law. It's just there's rules and you broke the rules. There's ordinances or whatever they are. And they have policies about it, and you could find yourself having a problem if you don't adhere to those policies. So it is a ham radio, but it's a GMRS radio is what I purchased it for. You could go in and tinker and all of that jazz. So if you found yourself getting into GMRS right now, right? And then you say, okay, well, for the summer, I want to take the ham radio. You take it and you pass. You could essentially turn this one into a ham radio. And I think that that's dope for $30. The level of affordability for something that has so many implications as it relates to giving you an opportunity to communicate with your loved ones is, I don't think there's any downside to owning something like that. I've been getting into GMRS radios over the last couple of months, did a couple reviews on my channel. Oh, nice. That's what's up. I'm gonna have to swing by the channel and see what you're talking about, see what your take is. What radio do you like right now? What have you come away with feeling like, okay, this is a radio? Because I feel like you could really get anything and be fine. Really. Well, you can't get anything. There are some walkie-talkies that I see that look, there are some GMRS radios that I see that look more like walkie-talkies, but they don't seem to perform as well. And the people aren't as impressed with those as they are with some other radios. I could kind of show at least one or two here in a second. Sleeper, what's happening? The sun and the moon are inside a crystalline dome and are fairly close. Interesting. All right. I dig it. I don't know what to do with that kind of information. What's happening? What's happening, David, in Kentucky? That's what's up. Does that have an extendable, longer antennas? Mine doesn't, but they can come with, there's a pack that comes with an antenna, a 771 antenna, which most people have said the 771 antenna is kind of like a copy of what's called the Nagoya 771, which is a really popular antenna for folks to use. Let me see if I could show you what I mean. Let's pop that back up, pop it back up, pop it back up. Let's see here. Let's go back. Like if you look at this pack right here, all right, let me be on the side. You could see that this one has, get out of my face, get out of my face, get out of my face, get out of my face. This one has, the antenna that I have is this one, the short one. And then this 771 antenna, you can see it's just a little bit longer. But that's the thing that separates FRS radios from GMRS radios. They have stronger transmitting power. They go up to like 5 to 10 watts, whereas like your FRS radios do like 0.5 to 2 watts. And they have the ability to have bigger antennas. So that's why, I don't know if it's a good reason or not, but that's kind of like the logic behind. You can do more with these radios, so we need to have you be licensed to use them, I suppose. But yeah, yes. What's up, Farmer Marshall? Good to see you too, man. Thanks for hanging out. I also have 4 of the local DPS channels programmed in my receiver only, so I can hear what's going on with traffic and law enforcement. Isn't that cool? Some people program them to listen to all kinds of stuff, man. And then these people who are into these radios, they typically are very monetary people in the first place. So you can find yourself being more informed than most people because they're sharing information with like-minded people who kind of want to be in the loop. So you can know almost instantly about an accident somewhere. You know, you got people on the road, truck drivers and all of that jazz who are into radios. You could possibly listen to that stuff. I don't know how all of that works, the VHF and the UHF and low frequencies and high frequencies, but there's a wealth of information out there that's available as it relates to people being out and about and having access to information that could share with you relatively quickly. And I just think that information is key. It's critical to kind of know what's going on around you. And these type of devices can help you be more informed. Let's see. You have to program in the repeaters. Can you just program in all the repeaters in your state or something? So the radios have a certain amount of slots on them. I think it ranges in the realm of like 100 to 256 or something like that. But repeaters can only use about 8 channels. I don't necessarily know the answer to this question. I'm just trying to give you the information that as it makes sense to me. So I imagine you could put Yeah, I don't know how that will work because I don't know if you could be connected to multiple repeaters at the same time. Now, this device does have the ability to monitor two different things. So I wonder if monitoring actually, yeah, because it has two buttons on here. So it has your push to talk button right here, and then it has these kind of programmable buttons. And you can program this button to transmit on your first channel, and then you could program this one to transmit on your second channel. So I think you can only maintain two connections at a time. But yeah, you could program more stuff into here. Uh, so I imagine you should be able to program in your repeaters for all your stuff. And now that I'm recalling some videos and things like that. This one guy did. He had about 4 repeaters around him, and he had all of them kind of programmed in. So you could absolutely do something like that. Now I don't know how far. If you could put like Louisville and California, or if you're in Louisiana, you put Louisiana and Texas, because you got to be able to reach it. But if you move and shake from those places, I think you should be able to put in multiple repeaters. But I just don't know what you have to do to say, hey, I'm here now, connect to these repeaters. I'm sure you can. It's just that particular information didn't sink deep down into my psyche because I wasn't thinking along those lines. But I'm sure you can. I was a ham radio operator in the 80s. Oh, okay, nice. I have 8 handhelds, and I picked up a mobile for my truck tomorrow. 4 of my radios are unlocked hams, and 4 are GMRS but unlocked, so I can talk on MERS as well as GMRS. Nice. The H3 and the H8 I had wouldn't hold channels in memory, so I ended up sending them back. Okay, so you had the H3 and the H8. Nice. There's like different generations of the H3. Like some people had issues with the devices, and another reason why I like the TIDRadio, who makes the H3 and the H8, is a lot of people who review these radios, they always talk about how I'm gonna take this antenna off. I don't need this off. It's messing up my ability to hold it because I want to hold the whole thing in the frame. They talk about how TID Radio is really responsive to the critiques of the people in the community. So they'll adjust and fix. For example, one of the things that people had a problem with, which I believe the gain was too low. So they allow you to change the gain right on the radio. And I think the second iteration of them doing it, before they put it in the radio, they had put it in the app. And people was like, why would I need to connect the app to change the game? Just put it in the menu. And so they ended up putting it in the menu. So that's another thing that encourages me about this particular company, is that they're responsive to the ideas and suggestions of the community. So that's pretty cool. All right, all right, all right. All caps. You went all caps on me, huh, Tim? For just a simple GMRS, the Wotion. How do you say it? Do you say it with the W, or do you say ocean? Is nice. So what is that? The KG805G. Let's take a look at that one. KG805G. I can go get that fetched. So check out and this is kind of what I'm getting at. Now, a lot of people like this particular brand, Ocean or Wotion or whatever. Check this one out comparatively. The screen is like super basic. I guess I can get my face out of the way. Let's do this. It has a power knob, and it probably has a channel selecting knob. Some guy had a good theory about this, why these radios have lights on them. They were saying that he suspected that they kind of may have felt like it was too expensive to have the channel knob on there, so just put a flashlight in that hole. Now this radio, nothing about this is impressive to me, and I hope that the performance is there, because I think that that's what matters to a lot of people. But for me, being my first radio, I would try and find something that was comparable to this radio, but looked nicer, felt nicer. This is looks super plain Jane to me. But I'm really picky. I'll admit that. I'm a picky cat. So I live in my truth. Okay, we talked about that. We took a look at it. Just FM, so it has no NOA. I like the weather alerts, being able to get the weather report on. What you doing? Oh, okay. Hey, Ivan, are you okay with him playing with your train that you built? Um, yeah, I'm a style. I like a certain aesthetic, so that one doesn't quite meet the aesthetic for me. And it's like they run $80. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. What would you say, Tennessee Frank, leads you towards this particular brand for this particular price? Is it like just the reliability of the brand or something like that? Chirp is a must for programming your radios. Yeah, I mentioned Chirp a little bit earlier. Hey, Sharp Army. I just saw, well, I just got on my computer, wasn't even watching on. Okay, I gotcha. What's happening? Uh, Not to change the subject, but I picked up another Pecron, got it on a daily deal for 255. I've been seeing people talking about the Pecron being a lot cheaper than the 299 price, and I feel like I've never seen that. And I'm just like, well, there you go. Okay, most repeaters have a tone you need to put in to access the repeater. Some are open where anyone can get the tones, and others are private. Yeah, I saw somebody had a club where they were talking about TAC numbers or something like that, and that's how they identify who has access to use the repeater, because not everybody has access to it. But there are public repeaters that you can kind of find. Like I have one near me, and a guy who was doing research, he had some near him. I think Setite looked into a few of them near him. He had about four. Um, so yeah, it's popping out here in these streets. Yeah, now Rubicon has a lot of good information. The thing, I actually commented on one of his videos because I've been watching his content, and he has a particular sense of humor. He has a particular sense of humor, so he'll be like, he'll say something like, yeah, I'm not like those other YouTubers who waste your time talking about nothingness. I'm gonna, and he wastes a little bit of time in saying that all the time. I'm just, I like the channel. I watch it on 2x because he talks really slow for me. Um, but I watch the channel a lot. I've consumed a lot of his content. But I was just like, man, I love the content. But for somebody who says they don't want to waste your time, you certainly waste a little bit of my time. He starts off unboxing his radios, and the first thing he talks about in the radio is the belt clip, and I'm just like, the least interesting thing to pull out of the box is the first thing you talk about. I feel like you don't value my time, sir. So I have to do 2x. Sometimes I skip ahead. He does like these really interesting things. I would think he considers himself to be a troll. He's also in he's also in a field or in a conversation, a niche is how they describe it. He's in a niche where you have to deal with a lot of strongly opinionated people who are very vocal. So he kind of like has a disdain for ham operators. He calls, I shouldn't say that. He has a disdain for a small percentage of ham operators who can basically be jerks. He calls them sad hams. And so I think that facilitates his less than uh, whatever personality, because some people, man, they're really people centric, and when they have to deal with negative comments and certain thing all the time, it tends to impact them and kind of turns them into or amplifies who they are. So he does, I think he does a lot of things to be annoying, but the content is still good. The channel is called Not a Rubicon, and it's Rubicon like the Jeep, the expensive version of the Jeep. Let's see. How far we already reach? I don't know specifically to my area, but if I could get 2 miles out of a radio, um, in my day to day, or if we're in um, the mall And if I could be out in the parking lot, and if I could talk to my wife, anywhere within the mall, that's a win for me. Let me think about what else. We have a theme park where they don't allow you to use two-way radios, which I think is opposite of. Anyway, I can't even go there with y'all. It's annoying to say the least. I'm trying to think of other situations that we would use it in that would be super helpful. I don't know, but I'm just looking forward to the increased range. But I know some people talk about where, like, under in a city, they can get about. And keep in mind, I don't want to stereotype, um, but I feel like these people who live in these cities, these people who make content, who are into radios, don't necessarily live in densely populated cities. They may be like in the suburbs or something like that, where it's like you're in the city, but you're not like downtown New York City. You're not like, I mean, I think it's a little bit different. So they talk about like 5 to 6 miles. If I could get 2 to 3 miles, if I could get a mile, a legit mile, in any circumstance, I'm cool with that. But as circumstances changes, as it relates to how we are and where we are, if I could get better range. Oh, outlets. Sometimes we'll go to the outlet, and outlets are pretty far spread out. We've used my FRS radios and outlets, and they work relatively well, but I feel like that going through the buildings and stuff like that can present some challenges where it's like either I need to move around a little bit to drive to the side of the joint where my wife is, or she needs to come back to me to start talking. So if I could just get better range, man, that's a win for me. Also, some radios have GPS stuff in them. I'm sure like the BTech and the top of the line Ocean or Wotion has GPS in it, and you could see kind of like um, I don't know if you can see a map, but it can send location, I believe. Hopefully, I'm not confusing Garmin stuff with these radios, but I think some of these radios have GPS in them. I don't know. I take that back because I'm not sure about it. Let's see. It's a super heterodyne radio, so it's an actual radio circuit, unlike most of the less expensive system on a chip radios. That's a good bit of clarity that doesn't matter to a lot of people initially, especially a beginner. Can y'all move around? It's a distraction to daddy sometimes. I think that I forget what the difference is with the abilities of that, the super heterodyne or whatever it is versus the homo something dyne or something like that. Ocean is good, a solid brand. Yaesu is a good brand but expensive. My high-end radio is a Yaesu FT65R. That's nice, but $144. Interesting. Is it a handheld? Sad hams, yeah. It's a river before it's a Jeep. Well, his channel is referencing a Jeep. Line of sight depends on terrain. In the city, half to maybe 2 miles. Out in the open desert, 10 miles or more. Boom. There you go. It really depends, though. It depends on things that have the ability to interfere with the range. So I almost need to, I don't know if I'm going to buy another radio first or if I'm going to get my license first. Because this particular one, the H3, some people talked about battery issues and the battery not lasting as long, even though it's supposed to last a good while. People have also talked about this thing called spurious emissions, which, as I understand it, is the radio's inability to keep its transmissions on its frequency or its channel. It can bleed over into other frequencies, which a lot of people seem to talk about how that's problematic because let's say you're transmitting and then the EMS people are talking and you're interfering with them, or the fire people, the firemen or the police or some other important radio transmission. So a lot of people focus on the fact that it needs to be a clean radio. And this one may not be clean. That's going to be interesting. But also, one thing that is interesting is that it's slightly better than an FRS radio. So the ability for you to kind of cause havoc with a little antenna like this is not that great a risk. But still, if you spending money on something, you kind of want it to do what it's supposed to do, and then not have these what? Oh, yeah, buddy. And not have a radio that's doing something that's not supposed to do. Do what you're supposed to do. So some people have talked about that as well. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? I love that it works with FRS too. I think that that's dope. And the implications of that is, if I have a better antenna, if I just need to say, hey, babe, can you head back closer to me? 9 times out of 10, she'll hear me, but she may not be able to talk back to me. And at the end of the day, that's fine. That's good enough for me. If you can hear me in order to make your way back to me, that's a good look, because this one has more transmit power than her radio may have. So, but for $30, I could just buy her a radio. And for this size, she may not have an issue carrying it. Now, the antenna is a bit much. It's a bit much. But yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm excited. Let's see. Okay, so we have the 5 watts on the GMRS is better than the 2-watt max FRS. GMRS channels 15 to 22 can do 50 watts, but that would be on a mobile or base station. I'd not want to put that much power by my head. That's interesting. I've heard people say that, the idea of putting that much power close to your face. Now, if you think about like CB radio, like the truckers have in their, when you watch, movies, or if you happen to know a trucker, the mobile base stations are similar to that. You can put them in a vehicle or have them on your desk. I could see myself getting into that a little later, but the thing about me is I'm not really attach an antenna to something kind of guy. That's just not my type of hype. But I could see myself, because they're so compact. Let me see if I could. Let's see if we could find one. So we're gonna do GMRS mobile radio, and we're gonna pop it up. Like, that's not terrible for a radio that, if you hook an antenna up to, you could have possibly much better range. Now, I don't know how much better the range is. I haven't watched not one mobile radio review, so I don't know how these things perform. But you look at something like the Midland joint, that could work. Like, look at that. I think that's fine. Especially in a situation where, let's say I had one of these in the car and I just packed it up with me. I'm trying to get to these pictures. So imagine a situation where I wouldn't install these things in my vehicle. I would just kind of bring it with me. But let's say I'm out in a parking lot, and because we do that a lot. I'm actually working remote more often than not these days for a particular period of time. And I like to hop in the car with my family and go somewhere. Like, we had a situation where my wife needed to bring one of the kids to a doctor's appointment. And we just hung out in the parking lot. I'll bring a tablet with us. We pop it up on the knobs of the radio, and the kids will hang out and watch TV, or they may have their phones and stuff like that. And then I get to hang out with them while we're out and about. We may go get a bite to eat afterwards and stuff like that. I enjoy doing stuff like that. But imagine a scenario where she has the smaller radio. Hey. Where she has a smaller radio and I happen to have a mobile base station with better range. I could probably give her the joint to be mobile. And I could have the other joint to talk to her via that. I could see that scenario working out. I also think about a situation where sometimes we stay in hotels or we'll stay in an Airbnb. My microphone be pulling my shirt down. It's annoying. We'll stay in an Airbnb, and sometimes I could see a situation where the family kind of gets out. I haven't even talked about the beach, but the family gets out. They may go for a walk or something, and I may have to stay and work to attend to something with my job or something like that. But then I could easily reach them if I needed to. She has the radio. I have a radio. The range is better than FRS. I think this is like fantastically a fantastic way to build on what we've established with our FRS radios, but just with slightly better range in the city, probably much better range in other situations. And then I have the scenario where I'm at the beach. Sometimes I have to go to the car. Now, granted, FRS radios will work well in that situation because the amount of whatever from the beach to the car is never that grand, but it could be. You know, my wife wants to get down to Virginia Beach at some point. And that situation is not like the little beaches we go to. Hey guys, chill. I feel like she in the zone. You know, that could be a much different situation where it's like it's not just me in the car, but maybe we're at like some type of resort and you know they're down on the beach and then I would have better range. I think it's fantastic. Let's see. Line of sight. Okay, CB is 4 watts. Interesting. BTech 20. Test to about 14 watts. Isn't too bad. Isn't the one I picked up because everything is on the handset. What do you mean? The BTech 20 V2. What's that? Let's take a look. Interesting. Look at how small that is. That's bananas. Oh, okay. So this is like, that's interesting. It's kind of parsed out like that. I see what you mean. Everything is kind of like, most of the things are down here in the handset. That's actually very interesting. For 140, that's not bad. With the better antenna. I'm going to start looking into these mobile base stations at some point to see what the benefit is. I'm not going to necessarily hook it into the power of a vehicle. That ain't my type of hype. But I will entertain using it on a power station to give it power and then have a much better ability to transmit to reach folks. So I think it's cool. Anybody have any questions on it? Man, I'm excited. I wish I had my whatchamacallem already, my license, because then I could play around a little more. And I'm gonna be honest, I may settle into a space where I start messing around anyway. But I want to learn more about these channels because these channels have not specific designations. They're kind of like different. Like 1 through 7 is something, and then because that's what got me. It was interesting with this one because this one has the ability to do low power. I don't know if you can see that. It has 2 buttons. One is low and then one is like higher power. I think this one is 0.5 and this one is the full 2 watts. And then I think I was on like a GMRS channel. You help me out here, Tennessee Frank, if you know. I was kind of on like 1 or 2, and those are, I believe, high power channels. And if I'm transmitting using my high power button, I got a little like I don't know if I want to do that. So let me go to a low power channel, and I think that's why I landed on 9. So I need to figure that out. And there's not necessarily videos that explain that, or at least I didn't search for them. So sometimes when you can't find it on YouTube, you just got to do a good old fashioned web search. I don't use Google much, but I use like DuckDuckGo or Brave or something like that. So I need to look into that to understand the channels better. And I'm going to do that soon because I want to understand what I'm doing. So yeah, All right. Oh, okay. That's how you powered it up with your computer. All right, guys. I don't want to necessarily go into solar. I want this to be about radios. If nobody has any questions, we're gonna call it a live stream, and maybe we'll do something else. Oh, I was trying. I'm gonna ignore this person, this adult female in the background, and move on with my life. So I want to. I have been trying to give 3 hours advance notice on the live streams, but that has really inhibited my ability to do the live streams because
you don't plan well.
I don't plan. It's hard for me to plan out 3 hours, and some of it has to do with pee pants over here. So John McCain, Barack Obama, Saturday Night Live reference.
Come on.
Joke. It's just like that's too much time to be able to like plan accordingly. It really is. I feel like you run the risk of like getting into a space where you kind of not into it.
That ain't been like, I don't know how long. There's been enough times where you were like, you get the okay from me because I'm like, all right, cool. And you be the one that blow up because you ain't do the planning, you ain't sit down and think about it. You waited till the very last minute. Now you pushing it back.
Because it's like I have to be sure that I can do it, but it's 3 hours out, and I just feel like it's not conducive to like.
You're not making up your mind.
Yeah, it's hard to commit when I got 5 other people in the house.
But once I say 5, you good.
I don't know, man. I guess I'm traumatized from your bailing out on me. You did me wrong.
2 years ago. Like, we gotta move on.
I can't move on. I'm hurt.
I apologize for traumatizing you, and in the name of Jesus, release you.
Boom. So I'm going to like 2 hours notice. I'm gonna try and give as much notice as I can, but I feel like if I can have y'all know that, okay, I want to try and give more time, but be on the lookout for me sometimes because it could be like a 2 hour notice. Then that works out, and then there's more content out there. And if you don't catch it live, that's fine. I feel like about a good 40, 50 people hang out with me on the live streams, which I appreciate y'all greatly. And a good like 500 people watch it after. So I feel like, you know what I mean? You don't catch it, just watch it later. Boom. Good chat. All right, I don't see no more comments. Y'all be beautiful, and I'm out.
You can still plan ahead, maybe even 8 hours. Like,
oh my gosh, at 8 hours. Cut it out.
If the day is the day, then it's the day.
Cut it out,
and
cut it out, cut it out.
Around to get to the day.
What?
I mean, to get to that point of the day.
All right. Yeah.
Not while you're eating.
Maybe the next time I do a live stream, I'll have my license. I need to look into that soon. Y'all be beautiful. I'll see y'all next time. Hopefully I could do something tomorrow on solar. Nope.